See, there is a reason why I leave that music going the whole time, right? It's because it's easier to edit afterwards. So you guys just have to put up with, every time, the insanely cringy twitching of a guy that's nearly 40, kind of moving and jiggling around to classical music. Thank you, Robert John Collins. Welcome back to another episode, my lords, ladies, gentlemen, and any dogs listening from around the planet. Welcome. We're gonna have a wonderful discussion today, but we will get to that. I want to kind of give that the proper due diligence moving forwards. For anyone curious about my hat, shut up. It is to protect my ears. It's cold in the house, and when you see the episode that goes out in a couple of weeks, there'll be a timeline that you can put together, because I will be wearing the same clothes. So it is up to you to engage in the puzzle and figure out which one of these was actually done first and which one of them wasn't. And is in no way some shrewd and silly way of trying to excuse my hat. But I like it, so I don't really care. Anyway, we have prided ourselves, I have prided myself on trying to cover as much from the skill set from as many different areas as we possibly can, right? Because there are a few papers or few books or not many practitioners that go on in the big scope of making this particular skill set work. And as we've said many times, other than critical thinking or developing your reasoning or skill-based learnings, one of the foundational practices is memory, right? How you approach that is kind of up to you, right? Based on your requirements and the way that you think about things. But one of the things that we take for granted as those who practice mnemonics in any way, shape or form is the fact that we can picture things in our head. Right? Regardless of the technique that you're using, it's kind of something that is taken for granted, other than remembering to do the flipping technique in the first place, which is something that a lot of people don't cover either. You may or may not be aware of something called aphantasia, right? It is basically when the little image projection system that apparently lives in everyone's head doesn't work, right? If you hear a little voice in your head, it is none, right? If you can picture something in your head, it doesn't work, right? One of my, I was about to say the funniest, one of my funniest versions of this. No, I'll talk to them about that in a second, actually, because I quite like it and I want to build this up. Now, we're going to look at some techniques of how to get into this, but for the technical terminology in terms of what aphantasia is, it is the lack of processing around voluntarily creating visual images in your head. Right, that's the technical terminology. So whether you're using a journey system or a memory palace or linking or pegging, teetering on smut, or whatever it is, there is the primary factor is being able to picture things, and there are those that exist that cannot do that. Right, Pascal, who is in our Saturday group, only kind of discovered that this applied to him not too long ago, and Pascal, if you are listening, mon pote, tu peux être la prochaine fois, if you want, but that's entirely up to you. For the foundational part of today, I brought you somebody, and they've been on the show a few times before. Right, so see if you can picture where you remember them from. I love them, right? It is such a lost art, in my personal opinion, to do the things that they do, whether it be the contortionism or the actual mnemonist performances that go through, or this or that. There is an air of vaudeville about them, right? So, with that in mind, my lords, ladies, and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Freak. Yay! The crowd goes wild. Excuse me, Freak. The crowd goes wild. Yay! Force of habit. Forgive me on that particular situation. Thank you for joining us, mate. I really appreciate it. Taking time.
Pleasure. I always love coming and picking your brain, even when we're not recording it, just having a chat about different things.
Well, that's it. Like, a side note, we had a little call, maybe a week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago, and suffice it to say, I was suitably shattered by your deft handling of 30,000 digits of pi, was it?
30,000 digits of pi. It's not a world record. It's not even close. But yeah.
but even so, 30,000 is still pretty phenomenal. But that's kind of an in of one I want to talk about. You I don't even know how we say this. You have aphantasia. You acquired aphantasia. What is the right descriptive practice? Because some people think of it as some kind of DSM quality or a mental thing. Or how is it processed that way? Is it something you have, something you are, something you use? I don't know.
My best understanding of it would be that it fits into the category of light neural divergencies. So I guess I have aphantasia.
Gotcha.
Or aphantasia.
Gotcha. I mean, to this day, I've never heard a professional say the word out loud. So aphantasia.
Yeah.
Who cares? So long as we know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wonder if
it's not like there's a support group for us.
That's true. At least not yet. At least not yet. I imagine somebody will work on it somewhere. Now,
I can't picture that.
No. Come on! The speed! I love it. Oh, not just from the dealer. But I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about what it is to kind of have this, because you spent a lot of time in the mentalist field, and yes, magic and performance and everything else, but mentalism is specifically where memory tends to creep in more so than other areas, and you'll hear people talking about this technique or how they do it or whatnot. What's that been like for you? Having this slight divergence.
So my experience with aphantasia, like many aphantasiacs happen, many of us, is I didn't know that it was a thing for the longest time. Throughout my entire childhood, I just assumed when people were saying, "Oh, imagine this," or "Picture this," or like imagine something happening, Spider-Man swinging from the ceiling or something. I thought everybody was playing along and pretending they could see things when they couldn't. Like it had just become shorthand for like understanding a concept of something. So when I found out, and I found out because I think it was a Storytime animator, I should have looked this up really, a Storytime animator posted a video on YouTube talking about them having aphantasia and describing a very simple experiment that everybody can do at home now. Hold out your hand and imagine an apple. It's bright, it's red, it's fresh. It has the typical stalk with a little bit of a leaf on it. If you can actually see that apple, you do not have aphantasia. If you are looking at your hand pretending to see an apple, you probably have aphantasia. If you're looking at your hand and your hand is melting into the non-reality of this material universe, you're on drugs. They didn't do that last bit. I added that. So finding out that, oh wait, no, other people can actually see things was a really weird kind of moment for me, understanding a little bit more about how tenuous personal experiences are, especially how we experience reality and how we all process information differently. And as a mentalist, although I haven't read a mind professionally for about 6 years, because I've shifted away from that.
Gotcha.
As a mentalist, I've always prided myself on having a very strict skill set. And one of those things is I don't claim to do anything that I can't actually kind of do for real. So things like I had to instantly cut out drawing duplications from my work. I can't have somebody draw an image and I then mentally duplicate that image because I can't see images in my head. I'm also limited in that I am dyslexic. So if I have somebody say, think of a word from a book,
Yeah.
I can't get that either because I can't fucking read. So I had to limit myself again. But that allowed me to focus on the things that I can do. I can imagine sounds, I can imagine smells, textures, and emotions, and like concepts. So as a mentalist, I saw myself doing more things around emotion and experience
Nice.
in my actual professional work, so I just kind of had to adapt.
Nice.
But then going further into the idea of, okay, let's not do things that I actually can't kind of do, I had to cut out mind reading because I can't read minds, right? Which because we've known each other for years, there's always been a very strong memory tilt to my work.
Yeah.
My first DVD, Mind Over Matter, my favourite thing on that project is a routine in there called false memory, where you demonstrate your ability to memorize a deck of cards in less than 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? I've always been doing little memory demonstrations and things in casual situations. So leaning deeper into that memory aspect just made more sense for me as a performer, and it leans heavy onto some of my own hyperfixations and personal interests.
Gotcha.
To only then hit a brick wall and have that same aphantasia moment of, oh shit, maybe everybody's not pretending.
Yeah.
To discover that most of the common memory techniques in use require visual imagination. Yeah, exactly. I can't build a well-developed mind palace because I can't close my eyes and see Buckingham Palace or like the Grand Cathedral in Edinburgh or the Dealers Hall at Blackpool.
Oh, God. Chaos and sweat.
Yeah, right. Mainly sweat.
Yeah. Side note.
Yeah, right. If you're going to Blackpool, bring deodorant for the love of God.
For everyone. For everyone.
Yeah, please. Yeah. So having to pick and choose demonstrations that I could do kind of limited me even further. Like, as much as I really want to, I can't do a classic routine, which is called the Amazing Memory Test, because it relies heavily on either, like, in the moment peg system work, creating a live peg system rapidly, or it requires image-based story systems, which again, I can't really do. Not in the typical way that all of the literature describes. So most of my own memory demonstrations either have to be sweetened through magical techniques or they're pre-memorized demonstrations. So I perform the alphabet backwards. That's memory. I perform, like that's pre-memorized.
Yeah.
I perform 30,000 digits of pi. Not all in one long row. That would be so boring. But that is pre-memorized work, you know?
It's
So it kind of hampers me as performer of memory?
First of all, let me just, I've been so kind of engrossed with that because I don't know if it's kind of non-politically correct or accepted to say that fascinates the shit out of me, right? Because I can and you can't, and where does it meet? And that fascinates the shit out of me. But one of the comments must have been from looking at the apple. Wait, am I on drugs? Brilliant. Like that proper got me. Now, I have to say, I personally appreciate that kind of truth in the way that you work, because it's something I've strived for a while, which either, as you'll know, tends to annoy people, or tends to be like, oh, why don't you just, well, because I want to do this. You do whatever you want to do. I'm not trying to convince you of doing anything else. Just do what you do. I'm doing what I do. That's fine. So I got to say, if I could tip the cap, if it wasn't stuck to my bald head, I would.
Same.
I love it, mate. I love it. The fact that you've thought that much about what it is that you do, brilliant. First kind of question that comes off the back of that, though, and we'll get into the techniques shortly, but this kind of alludes to it anyway, with you mentioning the way that literature describes certain things. So how do you take in literature? Is it strictly through like DVDs, downloads, that type of thing, or is it rote, or have to kind of practice it yourself bit by bit to make sure it's what's the word? It's embodied. It's an embodied part of you.
So a lot of if you're talking about like learning new skills or new concepts,
learning anything.
Right, okay. Most of the time it will be either ideally listening. Listening is really helpful for me because all I have is inner monologue. And then trying to understand those concepts. So a lot of what I do is pulling apart concepts and trying to figure out how those work within themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
A good example is we're just going to go through the entire alphabet of everything that's wrong with my brain. I have dyspraxia as well.
Gotcha.
Which for me primarily affects my hand-eye coordination.
Okay.
But I am a juggler. Arguably, you could say that's what I make most of my living doing. I am a juggler. So to be able to juggle well without hand-eye coordination, I had to practice my muscle memory on understanding how high something goes when I put in a certain amount of effort versus a bit more effort or a bit less effort. But I also had to learn a lot about theoretical mathematics to figure out how something falls when it's thrown at a particular height and angle. Like, I am not going to look at this Rubik's Cube once, and I understand that because of my poor Wi-Fi connection, this might just look like it's teleporting from hand to hand. But because I understand how things fall when they're thrown, I can throw and catch things arguably slightly better than most people because I pulled apart the concept of how it worked and reconfigured it to make sense for my brain.
Amazing.
So when it comes to something like a cognitive ability like memory, I have to pull apart what the actual primary functions of each thing is, and then try and figure out, okay, what are the essential techniques in this? What are the essential, like the core ideas? How can I reestablish that to work for my brain? A good part of this might also be the autism.
Hey, take your skills where you get them, mate. You know?
Fair enough. My career is weaponized disability. That is 100% of my career. I'm a contortionist because my body is broken as well.
I got to be honest. When I saw you, it was the shoulders that got me when they were bent round, and like my only other experience with seeing a contortionist is the classic lady that gets on a little podium and bites the thing, and the legs come over the top and all that. It was great. So seeing shoulders, it's a weird kind of fascination because oh, look at the bendy lady in the tight stuff. Yes, isn't that titillating? I don't really give a shit about that. I care about the ingenuity that it takes to understand that, hey, maybe my arm can go this way.
You know, and that again is because I'm disabled. I have a condition called EDS, or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a collagen deficiency localized to my joints in my case, which means that everything dislocates. But I've noticed that even in contortion, this is a massive side tangent, but in contortionism, there are two schools, and the most common one is flexibility-based contortion, which is the most common because it is the most aesthetically pleasing and the most, I suppose, socially acceptable. And there is the one that I perform, which is dislocation-based contortionism, which is not as commonly performed because, to be perfectly honest, it fucking hurts.
Yeah, it didn't look like the most comfortable thing, but it was kind of like it's like a roller coaster. I mean, anyway, let's come back to this because I could talk to you for hours, mate. You're a fascinating fucker. But Aphantasia.
Yes, that one.
Mentioning that you are pulling apart things first to provide understanding as a way it connects towards muscle memory, right? And if you look at the literature on muscle memory and the concepts, there are some people that argue that it doesn't exist, right? And to them, I always ask, well, can you drive? They say yes. Well, when you drive, are you going, that person's funny, you don't turn it around, they're going around the roundabout, I need to take the first over the left, the kids are playing football down the street. No, you just get in and you go after a while and all the information sits. Those are the concepts that play there. But what I like that you're doing with the memory techniques seemingly is inverting the standard process. Is most people, at least in my experience, will want to memorize something so that the information's there for them to understand later, which is when they kind of get confused and just think, oh, I just want to make my memory palace bigger and bigger and bigger, to which I'm always like, why?
Well, exactly. Make it as big as it needs to be.
Exactly. But understanding first. That's such a cool concept that I'm now kind of going over my experience of teaching and working with memory for so long that is a reason why a lot of people's questions come up in terms of, you know, what technique should I use and why and when. Back off a stage further, and I was only talking about it in the Discord forum the other day, but think about why you're doing something first. Get that, and then the whole thing flows easier. It's never simple.
Yeah.
But the whole thing flows easier. Like, have you seen the Travolta film Phenomenon?
No.
Wonderful film. Like, long story short, suspected UFO, possible brain injury, but either way, he gets really clever really quick. And he's being interviewed by this guy to kind of test his IQ. And the guy's going, how old would somebody be if they were born in, I don't know, whatever year he says. He said, what month? How old will somebody be if they were born in October this year? What day? And it keeps going, what time? Male or female? Yes. The clip is phenomenal. That kind of, I love it because it's that kind of specific drilling into why you're doing something. Like if you're just memorizing something for the sake of memorizing something, pick a technique, any technique, go for it. But if it's got a purpose first, the understanding will get you halfway there. I was like that. Arguably, that's the the strength of the methods right there for me. It's creating the proper sequence of the way that you attack memory training, and not just going, this technique's awesome because I can picture things in my head. It'll sit easier as a result. Fabulous. Love that, mate. And like with you mentioning about not reading minds, not reading books, not is it more then that it doesn't allow you to read, or do you choose not to read because of it, or where does that kind of sit along those? Whether it be a comic book or a textbook or whatever.
That's more my dyslexia. I really struggle to read in real time. Um, uh, I got a book last year called "You Are All Terrible" by Harrison Greenbaum. It is an excellent book. It's amazing.
Love it.
And it took me pretty much a whole year to read that book.
Yeah, fair play.
Because if I'm reading something, I can go through line by line. It takes me a while to, like, it probably takes me about 40% longer to get through a sentence of written text than it would somebody without dyslexia, you know?
Yeah.
But then I have to go back through it and try and understand it, because it's not just knowing that, okay, that word is avalanche.
Yeah.
It is, how does that word fit inside the concept of what the author is trying to portray here?
Gotcha.
So reading a book takes generally twice as long. So I decided that I wasn't going to do that, partially because I struggle to read generally, more because I don't want to get too into methods or secrets. But being a mind reader requires a lot of reading information while people aren't aware you're reading information. And depending on how nice somebody's handwriting is, or if they can spell or not, that can be incredibly difficult for somebody like me. So I chose to cut out the reading of written words or thought of words or spelled words in somebody's head, because that is very difficult for me to do.
Gotcha. So does it make any difference then, like if you were to listen to, I don't know, an audiobook or a podcast or the radio or something, is that better?
Yes, audiobooks are my absolute go-to. I've just finished my 4th re-listen of Moonwalking with Einstein.
Nice, love it.
Which is an excellent book for anybody interested in memory training. It doesn't only break down a lot of the science of memory training, it also goes into a lot of the culture, and in particular a lot of the more charlatanistic aspects of the memory industry, I suppose.
Yeah. Go on, sorry, mate.
Audiobooks are an amazing resource.
Does it, and I want to come to it, this is kind of a crowbar towards an actual technique. Does it make a difference whether you're listening to fiction or non-fiction then?
No, not for me.
Because you're thinking concept and understanding first.
Yes. Yeah.
God, yeah. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And like, how does that fit in when you are learning the alphabet backwards, for example? What kind of concepts are you pulling apart, if at all, or is that a separate thing?
Learning the alphabet backwards was a system of blunt force memory work.
Gotcha.
So I make this joke in my alphabet demonstration that I locked myself in my room for an hour every day and just taught myself the alphabet backwards. It's mental masturbation, essentially. And I would have probably gotten more out of an hour wanking, but these are the crosses we bear. But
Just put
in
my
reality,
forearms on the screen. Look at these bad boys. All
but in
masturbation.
reality, it was a lot of listening to one song on repeat over and over again, and trying to get that rhythm into my head and repeat that through. And if anybody's interested in the song that I used for that, it is still on YouTube. It's an Australian kid song about a wombat that tries to write down the alphabet on the bottom of his thong or sandal, but for some unknown reason, he writes it down backwards.
Brilliant.
And it's the exploit of this wombat chatting to snakes and stuff about how he just can't get the alphabet the right way around.
Brilliant.
It's
Brilliant.
great. It's called the Alphabet Song. It's on there. You'll recognize it. It's a yeah, you'll know the one that I'm talking about when you find it, because that is a perfect description of the madness of that video.
I love it.
But because of that and the spacing that is used in that song,
Yeah.
that is the spacing that I run through every time I do the alphabet backwards. And to hammer this point even further home, my
Excuse me.
partner, Eve, we didn't start dating because of this, but it was definitely a helpful factor. She was really annoyed when she found out that I could do the alphabet backwards, because that was her party trick.
Hey,
And
look at that.
I know, right? It's amazing. And I've taught her how to solve the Rubik's Cube. I'm slowly training up my own replacement. So she learned from a song, but it is a completely different song that she learned it from. So she does it in a different rhythm.
Brilliant. That's fun as fuck, that is. Just as a side note then, if you didn't know, Harry Lorraine, in one of his books on mathematical wizardry or something like that, has a wonderful fun rhyme about doing the alphabet forwards and backwards at the same time.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I know that there are rhymes for like story based systems for doing it backwards, something about a Viking.
Yeah.
But I didn't know one for forwards and backwards. I've been collecting alphabet demonstrations. I'm currently trying to learn to do the alphabet in alphabetical order.
Yeah. Like what's first, what's
Phonically.
second?
Yeah, phonically. I believe H is first.
Yeah.
I need to properly sit down and look at it, but yeah.
Love that. There's something, and we'll come back to the technique that I was hinting at, because we're gonna get a little aboriginal. But there is something in memory demonstrations, at least in my experience, with the alphabet, because it's that thing that people take for granted. You know, everyone knows the alphabet. Okay, what's the 18th letter without counting? And they go A, B, C, D, E, and the song comes on, and then you're like, do you ever really learn the words to Thriller or We Will Rock You or whatever? Is it just because it's that beat that's on, and it's a different way of learning, and you're in? But yeah, Harry Lorraine's is like ZAYBXCW, and that whole kind of working your way in the whole way through. So much fun.
There's a repeat out the back as well.
You can do. He gives you the option to do it.
Oh, I'm gonna have to find this. Okay.
I'll send you the link afterwards.
Great.
I'll send you the link afterwards. It's fun as fuck. But this, I had no idea, by the way, that the alphabet came from a song. It's kind of a coincidence, but some of the they're known as non-literate practices of memory has been shown to really help those with aphantasia, because it doesn't involve anything here. It's all external. So whether it's the pulling apart of concepts or movement or sound or a feeling or a rhythm or a touch or something like that, like there has been. And I've used this one as well because I love a bit of arts and crafts, just to get into it. I'm shit at it, but I love doing it. The whole notion of journeys. Building one in your house. and actually putting little posters of things on on a place, and like little so you know how you know where your cutlery is in your kitchen, whatever. But because you can't picture it, you just go and get a fork if you need a fork. That there's no real conscious processing to it. It's the same kind of thing in mind. You make these elements a part of your journey inside your house, or you know, if you have the option to do it outside. A lot of people don't, but if you have that option, there's always the way of reusing it. But the one that I keep coming back to is the Aboriginal practice of using music. It was known as songlines. And it was how I learned the London Underground. I just changed the words to the Muse album Origin of Symmetry. And so whenever I'm hearing, you know, the what's the lines from Newborn? Link it to the world, link it to yourself, stretch it like it's a birth squeeze. I'm singing about Wembley. I'm singing about King's Cross. I'm singing about footballs and Euston and all of these types of things. And it's every time the album's on, because I love Muse. One of my all-time favourite bands. Every time that's on, I'm singing, going, and I'm just singing stops along, and the whole kind of breakdown along songlines is they arose in cultures that didn't have language, that didn't have the known that you could picture things in your head. You know, these were the folks that Lynn Kelly, if you're ever interested, wonderful work. The memory code and the memory craft. She talks about these techniques at large, but it's specific to aphantasia because it's an external process. You know, that they would do these fantastic dances and, you know, would sing all of these songs in specific ways, but it's all like 30 odd generations of family detail and family history. And when they're walking through the outback, you know, it's quite a barren place. You know, there's no real signposts that say turn left at the next oasis and you'll find the food right there. Make sure you avoid all the things that are designed to kill you along the way. These guys can't communicate apart from grunts and whatnot. So I wonder if you've had any experience more than the song in terms of singing data, moving with information, and kind of physicalizing the practice of what it is that you were going to memorize.
So a lot of the time, I've also done work as a jobbing actor,
Oh, nice.
and a lot of the time, when trying to learn lines for, say, a play or a musical, I will try and link particular lines, or it's quite helpful for bigger characters. Linking particular lines to a movement or an action. Nice. But even just understanding the movements and actions mean that I can duplicate the sensation of that without having to perform the action.
Yeah.
So when I could still do some acrobatics or tumbling work, I used that to learn one of Puck's monologues from
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream, but now without having to lay out a crash mat and do the actual routine that I came up for that. I can just go straight into "Thou speakest right, I am that merry wanderer of the night. I jest to Oberon and make him smile when I have foul of being fed horse beguile, neighing in likeness to a filly foal, or sometimes lurk I in a gossip's bowl." I can go straight into that piece because I know that it's one step, two step, drop down to my knees, down to the back, roll over my shoulder.
Love that. I mean, that's essentially the same concept, and you know, we have a retentive practice. Now, for the folks listening, Pascal in particular, you know, if you're thinking about dabbling in certain gymnasticry and you haven't got a background in it, please don't. Unless you have a camera set up, then film it first. and then try it because it's funny as fuck. And we'll
Oh,
probably
okay. Bringing Pascal into this, I learned one sentence in French
okay.
when I went to Disneyland Paris just to make my the time there a little bit easier. It was Je suis désolé, je suis stupide, parlez-vous anglais?
Amazing.
I am sorry, I am stupid. Do you speak English?
Yeah.
But I've linked those lines to those movements. Je suis désolé,
Yeah.
je suis stupide. Parlez-vous anglais?
Brilliant. Brilliant. There was I taught a critical thinking session in Mississippi a while back. We had a similar practice because critical thinking, as you well know, very dry topic, valuable, but very very dry to talk about. All of these
Yeah.
wonderfully resourced and dusty old people and techniques, valuable and missing in the 21st century. But this isn't the time for my soapbox. Anyway, there was a. Wait, I don't even know what that's coming from. I've got an echo. What I'm going to do, Discord, if you're listening, is I'm just going to turn you off because I haven't figured out that echo yet. I have no wish to try right now, midstream. Anyway. So we're in we're in flow, and because I'm quite a this kind of person anyway, I'm forever moving my arms around as I talk. We're going through my method for processing information quickly, and it was called the R star. So it's 5 words that start with R. It was receive, reflect, refine, realign, and repeat. And I find myself just doing these naturally, and you can see the people during their exercises, they're going, okay, so I know where I am now. And it was a wonderful thing to see that kind of you haven't got to brute force or copy this down 1,000 times before you can just think of a different way of getting this information into your head. And it doesn't always have to be pictured images. It can be much more fun than that. You know, even if it's a little cringy, I would bet most people on the planet, if you stop to learn the dance for Macarena or Wigfield's Saturday Night or something like that, you could still bust it out every now and again. The second you hear that na-na-na-na, do, right? The whole thing. Right?
I'm not going to jump on the sofa. God,
you got it. Got it.
But yeah,
this is the practice of the Aborigine. I've just noticed a bite, and now I'm hyperfixated myself. Just in the spirit of shit, I don't know if I've actually told you. I too am riddled with the tism. But from
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's that's another side note for a different day. Well, I'm sure we can shoot the breeze about the things we have observed from within the spectrum. From within, behind enemy lines, so to speak. What's been your experience of the, if any, of the external connection towards information and how it's held within other people? Like the last time you spoke to someone that pissed you off, and then you see them walking down the street again, you're like, I remember that conversation, that guy annoyed me, this type of thing. I ask mostly because of Elizabeth Loftus's work when it comes to false memory and witness testimony and emotions that are involved with the way that we encode information is down to how it's pictured, the felt state, and how it's pictured in our head. It affects our true recollection of it. So does that apply to those who have aphantasia, whatever?
Yes, yeah. Emotions definitely drive how strong a particular memory of something will be, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
I'm not the best person to talk on that particular point because I've done a lot of work learning to self-regulate my own emotional state again because of the tism.
Hmm.
So I have found that excuse me, don't get too angry or overly emotional rather, on any one particular instance.
Gotcha.
But I have found that I am good at recalling quite often full sentences
Oh,
that
nice.
people have said in the past, uh, just kind of ad hoc. It's easier to recall something if I'm trying to prove a point,
Okay.
I've noticed. So
Okay.
my recall actually gets better if I'm in a slightly heightened emotional state.
Understood.
But I would imagine that things like witness testimony and stuff are still going to be just as poor from an aphantasiac. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, because it fascinates me. I mean, I could say that often again, but if you
I
think about,
suppose
go on.
if we take the classic demonstration of the car accident
Yeah, yeah.
anecdote, I guess there is a possibility that an aphantasiac might be less inclined to misremember details about, say, the color of the car, the number
Mm,
of cars involved in the accident,
mm,
the number of people in an area, what people were wearing,
yeah.
because not seeing those pieces of information visually in your head,
Mm,
it would be harder to invent uh, incorrect visual pieces of stimulus.
mm,
But at the same time, it might manifest itself in, especially for somebody that doesn't know they have aphantasia,
mm,
in creating false information
mm.
in order to appear as though
Totally.
they remember the information they're being asked for.
Yeah.
It might become a false confessions kind of
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not from a confession standpoint, but in those moments when and not from performance wise, just from daily,
Mm,
in terms of when you forget something.
mm.
What's that like? Do you try and recall? Is it trying to figure it out? Is it what's the process that goes alongside that?
I try and go back to the previous concept that I was working on, and like two or three concepts back to try and discover the initial stimulus that I was thinking about whilst I was trying to lock onto that thing that I was meant to remember.
Gotcha.
Um, Quite often, say if I'm, I don't know, scrolling through TikTok
Mm,
and I have a thought about a particular thing, and I'm like, oh, I should go and research that. And then I scroll down a few more videos, and like, I was going to research something. What was it? I'll have to
go
scroll
back.
back to that initial impetus,
Yeah.
for an analogy,
Yeah.
scroll back to that initial video to remember what the thing was I want to research.
that's that's so
So,
cool. I've done that before as well. Different
yeah.
reasons, but I've done that before. It's yeah, that's cool because you are in essence you are in essence solving a mystery. You know, the game is
Yeah.
afoot for the information. It's a kind of fanciful way of thinking about it, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
You're trying to catch this elusive idea. What do you like with stories? Like stories is something that I had success with when it comes to the Aphantasiacs, and there are certain documents that support it as well. What do you like with stories? Whether it be telling them of a Midsummer Night's Dream, or the story of what happened at Blackpool, or whatever it
Mm.
is, the recounting of events.
I am really good with linear structure, not so great with external detail,
Okay,
if that
okay,
makes sense. So if I was to recount any particular story, I can tell you the overarching structure of how we got from point A to point B. Say I was writing a fantasy book.
mm,
100% you will be able to follow the character's journey through certain key situations and things like that. But the world, the feeling of each scene probably wouldn't be as prevalent because those aren't the things that my brain is allowing me to focus on or describe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally, totally. I mean, that emotions are very often the thing that causes to go on tangents, as well. You know, and just as a side note, I've the person that is fond globally of a deconstructed narrative, Mr. Quentin Tarantino, has said a lot of his writing that it's emotion first. It's supported by the structure of the story and where it's not emotion for the sake of it, but it's these heightened senses that might, that cause how's John Travolta in the end of Pulp Fiction? Like, doesn't make any sense. Those kind of ideas. So it's fun that if you were to think about it as a spectrum, memory as a spectrum, the purely visual side on one area, and the purely non-visual. Like, is that even a way of thinking about it on the other? How would you go about combining something that you wanted to memorize into a story? Because I don't know about you, when I was the Shakespeare stuff, it would help me to tell the story of what I'm trying to communicate, not just to talk about, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, civil hands make civil blood, civil blood makes civil hands unclean, and all this kind of stuff. I'm thinking more about what they're trying to tell me in the moment. A plague are both your houses. As for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man. He's trying to see,
it's absolutely down to what the concept of the piece is and what is actually being said. So if we go back to Puck's monologue, breaking down those lines, he's essentially saying, yes, I am Puck. I work for Oberon, and I'm a mischievous little fucker, and these are all of the things that I do.
Yeah.
So understanding the emotion that character is feeling in each line, literally each line, and what they are boasting about and what they are trying to portray tend to help me with something like that, something as rigid as that. If we're taking things like live information into account, say I am memorizing a deck of cards, right?
Are they Jerry's nuggets?
They are.
Yeah, nice. Nice.
Yeah. I got given a bunch of 3 decks, 1 Blackpool by Bo Creamer because Murphy's were doing a promotion, and Bo kept all of the green ones aside for me.
What a legend.
Yeah, right? Really nice of them. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So if I'm trying to memorize a deck of cards, building a story system for that, I have to approach from a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
So for things like this, I use a modified version of the person action object system.
Yeah.
So I use celebrity, costume, action, object. So I use a base for person action object system. This is just if I'm working in, say, colors. Say I'm memorizing the color spread of 26 cards, right? Yeah. I'll use binary digits for 3 cards at a time.
Yeah.
To break that down, that allows me to only work in 7.
Yeah.
7 images. But I modified my person action object to build them into the running order for a variety show.
Nice. Okay.
Because for me personally, I've done a lot of compare work, so having to memorize a running order, I've got a lot of previous experience doing that. So I just create a fake variety show in my head, and then I can describe those conceptually.
Gotcha. I love that. So is that born then more of like rote habit connection to doing that, or is that the thing that comes naturally? Yeah. Okay. Got you.
Yeah, that's rote habit. Something that I had to just train myself to do the slow way. But it
Oh,
means now, rather than remembering, say, 1999, my birth year, I can think of John Mulaney dressed as Extreme Elvis juggling broken balls. Sorry, not 1999. I was born in 1995, so that would be John Mulaney dressed as Extreme Elvis juggling knives.
just as a side note, part of me really wants to go to everyone that I know that have ever dabbled with anything memory based, memorize something, but write the story down for me that's going in your head.
Yeah,
Because I think that'd
yeah.
be hilarious. Hitler gets abused every time I have to memorize a deck of cards. It's brilliant. It's so
Who's
much.
Hitler? Who's Hitler in your deck?
Ace of Hearts, Adolf Hitler. Ace of Hearts.
Okay, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. I see the connection there.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
yeah. So
If it was the King of Hearts, I would have been a little bit worried. Queen of
yeah, no,
Hearts,
no.
not as worried, but much more amused.
I did dabble with the Queen of Hearts, but specifically the Adolf Hitler from Little Nicky, because they have him in the French Maids as well. But
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one didn't sit as well. It was better to just physically abuse the fella.
Are any of your family members in your deck?
Yes, they are.
Oh, bad time for them.
Yeah, it's 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 my kids.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that because on the surface, that's a really sweet thing to do. In practice, oh no.
No, they have been in some precarious imaginary scenarios, and
Yeah,
like
some real tune in next week to find out situations.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like where you go like their therapist clearly must be Joseph Fritzl. It's one of those types of things, but
Yeah,
that's why I kind of wanted to do that because word to the wise, if you ever, for the people out there, if you ever meet somebody that is adept at memory work, don't ask them what they're thinking about. It will be the most unpolitically correct thing you
yeah,
could stumble across, unless you appreciate that
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But coming back to the dates of birth and whatnot, have you ever dabbled with things like the Doomsday algorithm or the Rain Man algorithm?
This is for day for any date, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I've tried to work on them in the past. Uh, for whatever reason, actually, no, 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 I know the reason. The reason that I haven't put in the effort to learn a day for any date is I'm not that interested in the concept.
I thought that might be the case.
I do have my own version of Day for Any Date, and you know what? Screw it. This is a really fun thing, and I urge anybody to go and make this up. I call this birthday breakfast,
Okay.
and the idea is so stupid. You tell somebody exactly what you had for breakfast on their birthday. And this is a
Brilliant.
false memory demonstration. This is a magic trick, but it does require a little bit of memory work.
Yeah.
You take the digits from 0 through to 9 and you assign them a breakfast item.
Yeah.
So for me, 1 is omelette, 2 is toast, so on and so forth. 3 is cheese toasty.
Nice.
And then you also take the digits 0, 1, 2, and 3 and you assign those a breakfast drink. So water, tea, coffee, so on. Orange juice is my 0 because OOJ.
Nice.
And then you take a pocket diary, and for each day you look at just ignore the month. Just each day look at what that numerical date is, and you just fill it out. So the first digit will be the drink that you fill in, because that's the only digit that has a limited range. And the next digit is the breakfast item. So 11 would be tea, no, one, water, and an omelette. So an omelette and a glass of water. And you just fill out the diary like that. And you keep that diary next to your wallet or just in your coat or something. And then just whenever you want to show off, ask somebody what their birthday is. And without any context, just name, pancakes and orange juice. You go, what? Last year, that's what I had for breakfast on your birthday. And they'll go, what? And go, no, look, really, really, look, I keep the diary on me at all times.
That's so good. That's so fucking good. I mean,
It's
most.
a really,
Go on.
yeah, it's a really stupid demonstration, but I find that that scratches the same itch for me
Yeah.
as Day for Any Date.
Yeah.
But it's weird. It's less personal than Day for Any Date, but it builds a more fun
It's
connection
more you.
between you
Yeah.
and the person.
Yeah. It's more you.
Hmm.
Because whether you intend on this or not, one of the things that I get from watching you work is there's never a flex. Oh, look at me! Aren't I better than you because I'm up here? Kind of, It's more of a this is cool. You might find it freaky. You might not. Let's all come and have some fun. That's one of the things I appreciate about you as a performer, and one of the main reasons I stopped with the magic and mentalism community at large. Far too much ego,
Yeah.
far too much ego. Anyway, so for Aphantasia being stuck in the world of procedural memory, of episodic memory, of semantic memory, which is for those of you guys out there that don't know, it's basically the memories that are connected to habits, the memories that are connected to context and emotion, and the memories that are connected to whatever you deem to be a fact. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of the processes. But with that, and you can speak to this more so than I can. The logic of recalled data and finding patterns of how things work. As
Yes.
you said with pulling apart, whatever it is, if you find that the story of the breakfast items must go in a particular way, or the story of Puck's journey must go in a particular way. So the question I have for you around that is when you look into using that kind of a concept, what do you do when you come up with the things that are inherently devoid of pattern? Is it using multiple patterns and then just connecting the patterns, or is it reverting to something else? Does the meaning jump out to you when you get stuck with memory? Because we all do, regardless of the method you're using.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the time with when I hit a problem, I can generally use that problem as its own notable feature,
Nice.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, right, okay. When it comes to memorizing pi,
Mm.
right? Say you're doing the first 50 digits. There are patterns within the digits. Threes are a really easy thing to latch on to because of how they're laid out in the first 50 digits. Eights as well. There is, in that first 50 digits, only one palindrome. It's 46264, right? It's in the 20s
I know
somewhere.
that.
And like latching onto that helps me focus on the stuff after it as well. Because I just think, okay, there's the palindrome,
Yeah.
and there's the stuff that means absolutely nothing.
Nice.
But being next to a palindrome give them an inherent notable feature because that's the stuff after the palindrome.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. No. Crystal clear. Crystal clear. It's like whenever I'm going through pegging. or number systems, what or number
Yes.
systems, whatever it is, and then people are talking about conversions. I'm like, if there is anything else that ever comes up to the numbers that is devoid of the use it. You know,
Yeah.
742 will always be The Simpsons. 31 will always be Family Guy. 221 will always be Sherlock. There's 330. You know,
Yeah.
it keeps going on and on and on and on. Always, you could. Why would you bother creating a system for something else where there's already a pattern in place? Like, I never understood that. Now, one of the last things I want to talk to you about, mostly because my dog is going to chew my feet off in a minute. I mean, we're 19 minutes past her tea time, and she's going a little
Oh,
bit. She's going a little bit. But she keeps trying to Monica Lewinsky me. It's terrible.
goddamn. Okay.
Too much? No. Okay.
I'm just wondering where your Watergate's going to be. Wait, wrong president. Wrong president.
Yeah, but we can go. The Watergate will be relative to my enjoyment of the action. Let's
That is true.
let's
That is true.
anyway,
Yes.
with aphantasia having the option of, you know, an emotive concept or a sensation or a feeling, or, you know, when people say feelings, it's always connected to happy, sad, whatever. No, I mean, like, heavy or
Oh,
cold, or, you know, these types of things. I experimented in my formative parts of my 30s with trying to give myself synesthesia. And
oh,
the only way I could think to do it is to try and create a kind of anchor for certain thoughts and certain feelings. And, like, when I was trying to memorize weights, I would literally put my weights on me, you know, to try and create what does this feel like on my chest, what does it feel like on my arms, and I literally lie there like some kind of, I don't know, someone that's cosplaying as a really shit version of the Thing from Fantastic Four. I'm just covered in nonsense. Like, if you've chosen to use it at all, of putting sensory connections first, touch, warmth, weight, cold, those types of things. Have you dabbled in the way of that for memory work?
um, trying to think of an example. Century, I suppose yes, but second hand.
Nice.
Like, not deliberately, but I have found it to be useful in particular ways. Okay, so if we take I do relate all of this back to work, but that's my life is essentially my art form. If we look at the script that I developed for what I call the world's stiffest skipping rope, it's a trick where I take my walking stick and I wrap it twice around my body without letting go. Right?
You did that at Mines. It was great.
Yes. It's been my signature cabaret piece for, I think, 10 years, maybe
Wowzers.
15, I'm not sure.
Wowzers.
But I have never bothered learning that particular script, like writing it out and examining it,
Yeah.
partially because I'm the one that created it, but more, I know where I am in the routine by the tension
Yes.
in my body. Where is tight, where is loose, where is dislocated, where is being forced into socket, you know?
Yeah.
So I can track that script by pain in a way,
I like that.
which I think is
Not that you're in
kind
pain
of similar.
as a
I'm not
technique.
100. Yeah, I don't know if that qualifies for synesthesia, but
Technically speaking, no, because synesthesia is a confusion of the senses, essentially. You know, tasting sounds and hearing a taste or whatever it is that's coming in. The experiment that I went through is to give. I really wasn't technically synesthesia, but to add that additional sensory based quality towards information, and like the relatable properties that I gave to the people I was working with at the time is one of them was training for the marathon, And I was like, so
Right.
what was? And I was like, so what was your first time doing a 5K? He told me. And I was like, so when did you first think that, well, I'm starting to make a bit of headway with this. It's starting to feel a little bit easier. He was like, when it stopped hurting towards the end. I was like, what's towards the end? About the 4K. So you're saying your body has a physical sensation reaction towards 4 kilometers worth of work. He was like, interesting. And those kind of concepts. So like if you were to put an action to I don't know, rather than just talking about jumping or imagining someone jumping, jump. What is that like in your feet, your knees? What do your hands have to do to kind of exert you into midair? That kind of sensory process. So if anyone's thinking that you'll like this, I've just seen this comment. Stand by. Loves your outfit.
Mine or Ben's?
It's not me, dude. Trust me.
I can't figure out if I'm dressed as a Newsies or Tevye. It's something musical. I'm not sure. I suppose Newsies wouldn't have this beard. It's Tevye. Okay.
Either way, yeah, I imagine there'll be a newsie somewhere out that wants to dabble in beard colouring. But that's kind of what I was driving at with the synesthete analogy, is that the sensory angle to it, and you've got many years of experience with that being a useful practice. So the main drive of this is to kind of bring an experiential discussion towards the use of memory tactics without picturing things in your head. We don't have to do it. We don't have to do it. So I wonder if we might close with a kind of challenge, because we're both fond of talking. So the challenge is around being succinct, right? What would be your kind of best advice, top 3 ideas, something along those lines of things to think about for any aphantasiacs listening now or maybe in the future, of practices that they can use that you found a lot of benefit in when it comes to memorizing information, regardless of volume, whether it's 3 things, 333 things, whatever it is, but the effectiveness of the technique itself.
If you are memorizing a known quantity of information and it's more memorizing the sequencing of said information, such as a deck of cards, having a set system of key pieces of data that you're really familiar with, and you can reorder without having to rely on any particular external stimulus, is really useful. So that that person, action, object is really useful for something like that, any known quantity of information. If you are going for rote memory or fixed information sorts of things, using movement and music is during your memorization of those things is invaluable, and in the recollection of lost information, going back to previous thoughts, previous concepts, in order to recall the impetus for that new piece of information, is the easiest way to get back to something.
Amazing, love it. But the perfect way to finish, because it's straight from the, if you'll forgive me, from the horse's mouth of somebody who is working this with aphantasia, and it's phenomenal, mate. I've really enjoyed this discussion. I have quite the intellectual boner, so thank you very much. Now, if you guys listening out there have got anything from this, you can find them on Instagram. I'll put all the details in the information below, so please check them out whenever you get the opportunity. Not just for the fantastic performances, but for the wonderful outfits as well. But but with that in mind, mate, thank you again for doing this. I've got a lot out of it, and from the looks of the comments,
thank you so much for having me. And we'll have to do this again sometime and talk about hyperfixations and autism, how that factors in.
Let's do that, right? Let's do that. Let's make sure we've got at least 3 hours where we can just kind of drill on something and get it done. Cheers, guys. See you all next week.